class. In today's class, we are going to discuss few two-gene interactions. That means after the dihybrid cross that you have got to know that how two genes can be interacting, and in Mendelian dihybrid cross you have seen that the phenotypic ratio would be 9:3:3:1, isn't it? So in today's class we are going to see certain two gene interactions where two different genes either present in the same chromosome or they may be present in different chromosomes, but they would interact with one another for a common phenotype. Okay, they would interact with one another to give rise to or to give expression to a particular phenotype. Alright, so how the two genes would interact with one another to produce or create a typical phenotype, that is what we are going to discuss today. Okay, so do remember these are two different genes. We are not talking about two different alleles here. Okay, these are non-allelic gene interactions, means two different genes, they may be present in the same chromosome or different chromosomes. They would now interact with one another and produce a single or express a particular phenotype. Alright, so as the class proceeds, as you get to know more and more about it, the definition would become much more clear to you. Alright, so let's start. See here. See, non-allelic interactions, these are interactions between genes located at different loci on the same chromosome or on different but non-homologous chromosome, controlling a single phenotype to produce different expression. Each interaction is typical in itself and the ratio obtained is different from those of Mendelian dihybrid cross. Alright, so we will be starting here with complementary genes. See, complementary genes basically means two genes, okay, they may be present in the same chromosome, again I'm telling, or different chromosome, but two different genes. Okay, just like in dihybrid cross, you have taken the cross between red like that means capital R and capital Y. These were two different genes, isn't it? So likewise, complementary genes means two different genes which when inherited together, okay, that means for both the genes when dominant alleles will be present, we call that, or we say that that gene has been inherited, means that gene product will be present in the body of the individual or in the body of the organism. Okay, so when two genes and for both the genes dominant alleles are present, we say that both the genes have been inherited. All right, and in case one of the gene, okay, is in the recessive state. Recessive state means you already know the concept of dominance. We call a gene to be completely recessive when that gene product is completely unavailable. The gene is not able to produce any protein at all, isn't it? So if a gene is in the complete recessive state, that gene's product is not available, isn't it? So we say that that gene is not inherited. It has to be present. It is present in the chromosome, but it is not functioning. It is not giving rise to any product. So it has not been inherited. Okay, its product is not inherited. All right, understood? So regarding complementary gene, what it means is that complementary genes are two genes which when inherited together, okay, it will give rise to a particular phenotype, a dominant phenotype. But if inherited singly, that dominant phenotype would not be produced. Alright, let me give you an example to make it much more clear. See here, complementary genes, these are two genes that interact together to produce a dominant phenotype which cannot be expressed when either of them are inherited singly. For example, flower color of sweet pea or Lathyrus odoratus. Okay, see here. Say the flower color of sweet pea is under the control of two genes, gene C and gene P. These two genes together control the flower color of sweet pea. Okay, so that gene C produces the raw material for the color and gene P, it produces an enzyme, okay, which converts enzyme to convert the raw material into pigment. Okay. So gene C, it will produce the raw material for the pigment, and gene P produces the enzyme to convert that raw material into the color, into the pigment. Alright. So that means when gene C is inherited singly, means only gene C is in the dominant state. Say capital C, but small p, small p. So P has not been inherited, isn't it? When gene C is inherited singly, only raw material is produced. But is there the enzyme present? See, P is in the recessive state, means the enzyme which can convert the raw material into pigment, that is not present. So in that case, will the color be produced? No, absolutely not. So in that case, the flower color remains white. Understood? Similarly, if gene P is inherited singly, means this time C is in the recessive state, P is in capital. P genes, dominant alleles have been inherited. So P has been inherited singly. Okay? C is in the recessive state. So can the color be produced in this particular case? See, now what is happening? The enzyme to convert the raw material is present. Fine. But the raw material producing gene itself is not inherited. In that case, will the color be produced? No. So again, the flower color would remain white. Right? Only when gene C and gene P, both the genes have 1 dominant alleles. That means both the genes have been inherited together. Now raw material is also present, an enzyme to convert the raw material into pigment, that is also present. Now the flower color would convert into purple. Understood? So now we can say that gene C and gene P, they are complementary genes. Understood? Now listen to the definition to make it more clear. Complementary genes means two genes which when produced or when inherited together, okay, when inherited together like this, that means both have dominant alleles, okay, both are functional. So two genes which when inherited together produces a dominant phenotype, but when inherited singly do not express the dominant phenotype, rather produces the same phenotype. Understood? Clear? So complementary genes means two genes which when inherited together, they produce a dominant phenotype, but when inherited singly will produce a similar or a same type of a phenotype. Understood? So that kind of a effect is called complementary gene effect. Understood? Clear now? Now what you need to do is a task for you to do at home. Now that you're watching the video, pause the video and do the task. Okay, what you need to do is parental generation, because we need to find out the phenotypic ratio for the dihybrid cross between the complementary genes. Okay, so suppose the parental generation is capital C, small p, small p. What will be the color of the flower? White, isn't it? Crossed with small c, capital P. Flower color is of course white, isn't it? So F1 hybrids will be what? Here the gamete is capital C, small p. Here the gamete will be small c, capital P. So when both the gametes will fuse, we get the F1 hybrid which will have the genotype capital C, capital P, small p. So what will be the color of the flower? Of course, purple, isn't it? So what you need to do now is that find out the F2 generation. Simply you need to make this, like when selfing between F1 progeny will be done, you will get a Punnett square, isn't it? For F2 generation, you will be getting a Punnett square where 16 different types of zygotic combinations will be present. So you need to do that. You need to, using the Punnett square, you need to find out the F2 generation and then count what is the phenotypic ratio. Here don't have to find out the genotypic ratio, just simply try to find out how many of the zygotes or how many of the progeny will be purple and how many of the progeny will be white in the F2 generation. So find out the phenotypic ratio of the F2 generation and check whether it is 9:3:3:1 or not. If not, that means the complementary genes do not obey Mendelism. Okay, because according to Mendel, for any kind of dihybrid cross, when two genes are interacting, the result in the F2 generation, the phenotypic ratio should be 9:3:3:1. So you need to find out what it is for complementary genes, and if it does not, obey, like if it is not 9:3:3:1, in that case, the complementary genes do not obey Mendelian dihybrid cross ratio. Alright, it does not obey Mendelism. So it is a deviation to Mendelism. Understood? Fine. Will you be able to do it or not? Check it out. Pause the video right now and check it out. What will it be? Fine. This class is going to be very interesting in case you can do the dihybrid cross properly and in a prompt manner. Otherwise, it is also a class in which your dihybrid cross, this particular cross that is very important for this chapter, that can get practiced as well. So right now, pause the video and find out the phenotypic ratio of the F2 generation. Alright? So, if you have already done it, then in that case, you of course know that in the F2 generation for complementary genes, the phenotypic ratio would be 9:7, isn't it? Where 9 is for purple and 7 is for white. So in that case, does it obey Mendelism? No. So complementary genes would be a deviation to Mendelism. Is that clear? Understood? Similarly, now let us discuss another type of gene interaction, that is duplicate genes. Now, what is duplicate genes, you see? If the dominant alleles of two genes, gene loci, produces the same phenotype, whether inherited together or singly, the 9:3:3:1 ratio is modified to 15:1. So what basically here we are trying to say is that, suppose there are two genes, A and B. A, when inherited singly, means either like this, or even you can write capital A, small b as well. Okay, if one dominant allele is present, that means that gene has been inherited. Okay, so if gene A is inherited singly, suppose it produces a phenotype white. This is just for you to suppose. Okay, I'll give you the example later on. Likewise, if gene B is inherited singly, the phenotype produced is white. Okay, likewise, if both the genes are inherited together, now also if the phenotype remains the same, then we will call gene A and gene B to be duplicate genes. Understood now? That means two genes, whether inherited together or singly, if they produce the same phenotype throughout, we will call them duplicate genes. And in duplicate genes as well, the phenotypic ratio in the F2 generation would not be 9:3:3:1. Rather, it will convert into 15:1. Okay, so it is also a deviation to Mendelism. So let's check the example now. I hope it's clear. So see this. The example that we are taking here is of shape of capsule of shepherd purse. Okay, that is Capsula bursapastoris. That's the scientific name of shepherd's purse. And capsule is the fruit of shepherd's purse. Okay, so shape of the fruit of shepherd's purse can be of two types. Okay, and it is controlled by two genes. Okay, so shape of capsule of Shepherd's purse is under the control of two genes, A and B. Okay, when A is inherited singly, the shape of the capsule is triangular, like this, triangular. Okay, likewise if B is inherited singly, then too the shape is a triangle. Alright. Also, when both would be inherited together, now too the shape of the capsule will be triangular. Only when the genotype is like this, means none of the genes have been inherited at all. Okay, both are in the recessive state. Only then the shape of the capsule will be like this. It will be top shaped. Alright. So in that case, these two genes A and B, which control the shape of capsule of Shepherd's purse, are duplicate genes. Now is for you to practice it. How would you do that? See here, parental generation, take it to be this. Okay, of course you know that it will be triangular, the phenotype. F1 hybrids would be capital A small a, capital B small b. Again a triangular shape will be produced. Your task is find out the F2 generation. You know the phenotypic ratio would be 15:1, fine. But why not check it by yourself as well? That way it will be a practice for you, and really it is a very must thing for you, all of you. Dihybrid cross, the more you practice it, the more prompt you will be and the more accurate you will be in the later part of the chapter when you will have to do pedigree analysis. For that also the practice is very, very, very important. So all of you, even if you know the phenotypic ratio won't be 9:3:3:1, rather it will be 15:1. Still then, all of you do practice the dihybrid cross. Alright. So pause the video again and try to do the cross for the F2 generation. Alright. Fine. The ratio of course would be 15:1. So for duplicate genes, the phenotypic ratio does not obey 9:3:3:1 ratio of Mendel, rather it is 15:1. Clear? Fine. Are you finding it interesting or not? Fine. Now moving on to another very, very important two-gene interaction, that is epistasis, and it's very important for your exam as well. Now, epistatic gene is something very simple to understand. It's basically two genes here, they will interact in a manner so that one gene will hide the effect of the other. Just like, say, you know very well in Mendel's monohybrid cross, you know that when it was capital T small t, in this combination capital T is masking down, or making small t get masked down, isn't it? Or small t hides under the effect of capital T, isn't it? So we call capital T to be dominant allele and small t is called to be recessive or wild type and mutant type, isn't it? But this was allelic, allelic interactions. Right now we are talking about non-allelic interaction. Rather, we are talking about two different genes interacting with one another. Okay. So in that case, epistasis simply means two genes are interacting in a manner that one gene is going to hide out the action or expression of the other. One gene will mask the expression of the other. This is called epistasis. So in epistasis, when two genes are participating, one gene which is making the other one hide, or the gene which is acting here as a dominant gene, we call it epistatic gene, and the other gene which is hiding itself, acting like a recessive one, that is known as hypostatic gene. Is that clear? Two genes are interacting in a manner that one gene is masking down the expression of the other. This is called epistasis. In epistasis, the gene which is acting like a dominant one, that is called epistatic gene, and the other one which is hiding itself down, acting like the recessive one, that's called a hypostatic gene. Is that clear? Fine. So see this. A gene which masks the action of another gene is termed as epistatic gene, and the process is called epistasis. The gene which hides itself is called hypostatic gene. Alright. Now the interesting part begins here, that epistasis can be of again two types. One is recessive epistasis, another is dominant epistasis. Let's start with recessive epistasis. Okay. I'll not tell you the definition first. All of you listen and try to understand this part. Recessive epistasis' example is this: coat color of mice. Alright. Now see, suppose coat color of mice is under the control of gene B. Okay. So that when gene B is in this state, capital B, the color that is produced is grey, or also we call it agouti. If it is in this state, capital B, small b, heterozygous state, then also the color is same, grey. Alright. If it is in this state, it is black. When the gene B is in the recessive state, color produced is black. Understood so far? Recessive epistasis, we have taken the example of coat color of mice, and suppose the coat color of mice is under the control of gene B. When gene B is in the homozygous or heterozygous state, homozygous dominant or heterozygous state, the coat color is grey, and if it is in the recessive state, the coat color is black. Okay? But then, apart from gene B, there is another gene, say gene A, that is also going to influence the coat color of mice. How? That's because gene A produces the raw material for the color. It produces the raw material for the color, and gene B simply converts the raw material into pigment. That's how grey or black color is produced. Understood that? Fine. Now suppose gene A is in the recessive state like this, small a state. So that means raw material itself won't be present. If raw material itself is not present, whichever combination gene B would be it whatever combination gene B is present in, will there be any color produced? Understood? Gene A was supposed to make the raw material which gene B was supposed to convert into color. Now if gene A itself is in the recessive state, means raw material is absent. In the absence of raw material, can gene B be producing any pigment? No, isn't it? So in that case, gene B, whenever gene A is in this state, recessive state, gene B, whatever combination it might be present in, it won't be able to produce any color. Rather, now the color for any kind of combination, the color would become white or albino. Alright, when gene A, that is the raw material producing gene, is in the recessive state, gene B, whatever combination it might be present in, doesn't matter, it won't be able to produce any color. Rather, the color of the mice would be simply white or albino. Understood? So what's happening here? See, gene A is acting here as a epistatic gene. Why? Because gene A, when in the recessive state, is it allowing gene B to express itself? Gene A in the recessive state, it is masking down the effect of gene B. So gene A is acting like a epistatic gene and gene B is acting here as a hypostatic gene, isn't it? Right? Understood? So that's what we call as recessive epistasis. Means when the epistatic gene is in the recessive state, the hypostatic gene is not able to express itself. That's what is called recessive epistasis. Clear? So what was epistasis? When one gene masks down the effect of the other. Okay, so one gene that is acting like a dominant here is going to be called as epistatic gene and the other one is hypostatic gene, right? Now whenever the epistatic gene in the recessive condition does not allow hypostatic gene to express itself, we call that to be recessive epistasis. Is that clear? Understood that properly? No confusion at all, right? So now is your task. What you need to do is this. Okay, take parental generation to be this. What will be the color here? Color? Can you tell me what will be the color in this kind of a genotype? A is present, that means raw material is available, and B is in the recessive state, that means it will be black, isn't it? And in this combination, raw material itself is absent, so no matter whatever combination B is in, the color will be white or albino, isn't it? So F1 hybrids will have a genotype capital A small a, capital B small b, that means all will be grey, right? So you need to simply find out the F2 generation. Find out the F2 generation right now and check whether the phenotypic ratio obeys Mendelism or not. That means the phenotypic ratio is 9:3:3:1 or not. If not, in that case, it will also be deviating Mendelism. Alright? Now, right now you need to practice it, because later on, if you keep it for later on, everything would anyways keep on getting piled up. So all of you pause the video and check out the F2 generation's phenotypic ratio right now. So if you have already checked, you know very well now that for F2 generation, the phenotypic ratio would be 9:3:4, where 9 is for grey, 3 is for black and 4 is for white. 9:3:4, 9 is for grey, 3 is for black and 4 is for white. So this is what is called recessive epistasis. Clear? Now moving on to dominant epistasis. Just like in recessive epistasis, you have learned that when the epistatic gene in the recessive condition does not allow the hypostatic gene to express itself, that is called recessive epistasis. So of course then similarly, dominant epistasis would mean that when the epistatic gene is in the dominant state, it does not allow hypostatic gene to express itself. As simple as that. Alright, so let's check out the example. The example that we are going to take here is fruit color in summer squash, that is Cucurbita pepo. Alright, so see, the fruit color of summer squash is under the control of two genes, W and Y. Okay, W is the epistatic gene and it produces white color, and Y is the hypostatic gene. here and it will produce, or it is responsible for producing yellow color. Okay, so that when the genotype is like this, all are in dominant state. See, capital W, capital W, capital Y, capital Y. All the alleles being dominant, the color, what should be the color? The color produced should be white or yellow. The color produced is white. That means what? The gene W is acting here like a epistatic gene, because when it is present in the dominant state, is it allowing gene Y to express itself? Is there any hint of yellow produced? No. So that means in the dominant state, W gene is not allowing Y to express itself. So we call it dominant epistasis, where W is the epistatic gene and Y is the hypostatic gene. Alright. So likewise, tell me one thing, what will happen to the color when the genotype is like this? Small w, capital Y, capital Y. That means W is not inherited, only Y alone is inherited. Now what will be the color? The color now will become yellow. Means only in the absence of the epistatic gene, the yellow color will be produced. Means hypostatic gene will be able to express itself. Understood? Likewise, if none of the genes are inherited, means all the alleles are in small letter. All of them are in the recessive state. Now what will be the color? No color is produced, it is not possible, right? So in that case, the color now would be green. When none of the genes are available, none of the genes are inherited, in that case, the color is now newly produced, a new color is produced, and that is green. Is that clear? So W, when present, Y be it in whatever combination, the color will be white. Yellow color will be only produced when W is in the recessive state. And if both are not inherited, both are in the recessive state, then only the color will be green. As simple as that. Alright? So in the dominant state, the epistatic gene is not allowing hypostatic gene to express itself. That's why we call it dominant epistasis. I hope all of you are clear about it. Alright, so what you need to do? Make this cross. Parental generation. Capital W, capital W, capital Y means the color is of course white. Crossed with small w, small y, you know the color is green, isn't it? F1 hybrids will be all capital W, capital Y, small y. That means all of them will be producing white color, isn't it? Because both the genes are inherited. Find out the F2 generation. You need to find out the F2 generation again. And that's an important thing for you to do. I'm telling you repeatedly. Find out the F2 generation and check whether it obeys Mendelism or not. Whether it is the phenotypic ratio is 9:3:3:1 or not. Check it out right now. And if you have checked already, you know very well that it does not obey Mendelism here as well, because the ratio is 12:3:1, where 12 is for white, 3 is for yellow, 1 is for green. 12:3:1. Alright. Where 12 is for white, 3 is for yellow, and 1 is for green. So here too, the dominant epistasis 2 does not obey Mendelian dihybrid cross ratio. So this being certain important two gene interactions that we were to discuss. So that's all for today's class. I hope all of you have practiced dihybrid cross properly and you have all understood all of this topic or two gene interaction properly. In the next class, we'll start with another very important topic, that is chromosomal theory of inheritance.